but we begin with Ben Kiely and Brendan O'Hare talking about the Christmases of the 1950s, when the factor of emigration became such an important part of Ireland's story and was especially noticeable at Christmas.
The war was just over and it was safer to go. The bombing had stopped and all that, and England had to be rebuilt, and there was a lot of work. America opened up too. In 45, 46, the liners started to come back again. And that was the sad part of it, that every Christmas when you got old enough to go to the dance hall on Stephen's night was the first night of dancing, after Advent and the days of Christmas were over. And there were always the people who were missing. But much later then people came home for Christmas in the 50s. And that made for... In those early years too, you see that people forget now with the flights from Shannon, 4 or 5 hours and you're in the States, that in those days what made emigration to America such a sad thing was that people could not look forward to a visit home maybe for 10 years, maybe for 15 years. Some of them never. If they got married and began to rear a family, they mightn't make it back until they were retired in their 60s, at which stage there was this big break. And in Inishmore, the custom was that the letters for the eastern part of the island were delivered out at the wall outside the post office, and there were 2 postmen calling out the letters, and the people stood around and went from village to village. And my memories of letters being passed out, letters from America being passed out over the heads of people, and you shouted in shop, like just being at school, to call out the names. And
I suppose inevitably there were people there and no letters came.
Yeah, very few, in fact. I think people who never, it was like the people who never went to confession at any other time of the year went to confession at Christmas too. It was like people who never wrote a letter, they wrote a letter then. So there was that mixture of happiness and sadness and all that came.
Ben?
It's a funny thing about those American letters. I spent one Christmas of my life in the post office. I mean, I didn't spend all the Christmas in the post office. I was working there. So I went through, for a few months only, but I went through one Christmas rush. And coming up to a certain time before Christmas, the American letters began to come in. You didn't even recognise them by the stamp. You recognised them by the handwriting. They all had the same very good handwriting, which all the writers had originally learned out of whatever handwriting copy. Dear Foster. Exactly the same on every envelope, the same handwriting for the Christmas letters. And you wouldn't get it at any other time of the year at all, but on the American Christmas letters.
That was from Kieran McMahuna's regular Christmas programme, Let the Toast Pass. The speakers there were Ben Kiely and first Brendan O'Hare.